Hey, if you're a real estate investor in Florida, you've probably heard the news that Florida has finally joined the 21st century. After years of watching other investors take their business possibly to invest in other states that have adopted laws that recognize the Series Limited Liability Company, Florida decided to jump in. And I'll tell you what, on the surface, it looks like, hey, this is great for landlords. Now you can go out there and you can create one LLC, you can create a bunch of cells, and you can put all those properties under that one Series LLC. But this is the thing, is that what sounds great on paper is not perfect in reality, right? As someone who's been building these structures for years, I have to tell you this, the excitement around this new law in Florida, I think is premature, because while the laws change the reality on the ground, all right, there's several things that people are missing who are talking about Florida's Series LLC statute as being this wonderful tool for people who invest in Florida. Listen, if you jump into it without understanding the registration tax or the privacy trap or what can happen to your property when you transfer it in, you're not building a shield for your properties, right? You're going to either build a public map or you're going to increase your taxes on your investment properties. So here's what I'm doing in this video. I'm going to break down the Florida Series, Protected Series statute, and why the new law might actually be a step backwards when it comes to protecting your structures. And it's why I'm still telling my clients, hey, you don't want to necessarily jump in and use that Florida Series LLC statute right now, because it's not going to give you the benefits that you're looking for. Okay, let's get started. All right, so what is a Series Limited Liability Company? If you're not familiar with this, let me just talk about it really quickly here. So what a Series LLC is, what we're doing is we're creating one LLC right here. This is called your parent limited liability company. So this LLC right here has an EIN agreement, EIN. It has its own operating agreement as well. Okay, so it's set up just like a traditional limited liability company. But the difference is in the actual operating agreement itself. You see, in that LLC operating agreement, think of this as like a big cabinet. It has the ability to create drawers, all right? And these drawers are what we refer to as your series or protected cells. So what you're doing now is you're creating this one parent with the ability to go in there and create all these little drawers that are going to be held inside of this cabinet. Now, each of those drawers, if it's in a dresser, these are your cells. So this might be cell A, cell B, and cell C. And so if you think about it, right, if you have a cabinet, you have all these separate drawers, whatever you put in that top drawer right here in A, that stays in that drawer. It doesn't fall into the bottom drawer unless, of course, the bottom falls out. And if the bottom were to fall out of that drawer, what is that telling you? Well, it's telling me that this drawer right here is somehow defective, and there's a problem with it. That's in the legal context with entities, it's called piercing the veil. So as long as you're setting up the structure properly, then anything we put in this one drawer here, in drawer A, is going to stay contained in drawer A. Now, this is what a Series LLC allows you to do. You have a cabinet where you can create an unlimited set of drawers inside here. It can become a cabinet of curiosities, okay, to think about this. You just keep adding drawers as you need them, and they all get held inside of this right here. And each of them has its own separate liability. Now, historically, Florida did not allow you to do this. If you wanted to protect, say in my example, 6 properties, because what we would do is put each individual property into a different drawer, historically what you had to do is create 6 limited liability companies. And so that meant you would have to file 6 LLCs, okay, so we create separate LLCs, which in turn means that you would have a separate filing, you'd have a separate registered agent for each of those companies that you're setting up, separate operating agreements, separate annual reports. And so what has made the Series LLC so attractive for a lot of people who have looked at this, in fact, I use it in my own investing in Oklahoma and in Texas, I use a Series LLC. What makes it attractive is the idea that you can just get away with all that. You don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to do it on one entity. You only have to do it on the parent. Okay, and that's why I prefer to use this structure if I invest or when I'm investing in a state that has recognized it. However, there are certain states like Florida that have put a twist on it, all right, where they change it. And I like to refer to this as the registration trap. Now, here's where it affects you, okay? With a Series LLC, when you form the master LLC, okay, and you create all these drawers internally that are allowed inside of your operating agreement, the state typically doesn't know that drawer A exists. So in a state like Oklahoma, when I create a new drawer, I'm not registering that drawer with the state of Oklahoma. That's my internal document. The only way someone would see this is that when they look at title to a piece of property and they say, hey, this home right here is held under the drawer A name, that's where it's going to show up. They can't see the sell agreement that I put together for this drawer that references this company here. None of that is visible to them. Now, Florida, on the other hand, requires you to file a statement of designation for every single cell that you create. Okay, so this is what the Sun Biz Trap is about. So in Florida, when you want to set up a new drawer or cell, what it's telling you is that you're going to have to register each of these companies, each of these cells with the Secretary of State. Now, when you register it, what it's doing now is that the existence of all these drawers now become a matter of public record. And if you're, an investor, the last thing you want is a public website showing exactly how many drawers you own, right? We want to keep these things private. So this is a problem with Florida, and the other states have done this as well with their Series LLC statutes. And I can see part of the argument is this. When you require the drawer to file, the cell to file with the Secretary of State, you give it a little more legal credence, not from an asset protection standpoint, but from the standpoint if you're trying to open up a bank account, right? You go down to a Chase Bank, a Wells Fargo bank, they can look at the Secretary of State's website and they can see that you've registered this drawer with the Secretary of State's website, so they know it's a legal entity and it exists. Whereas if you're not doing that, for example, in my case, all right, where I've set these things up in Oklahoma, here's my parent LLC right here, and I have multiple cells, okay, right here, all owning property. And none of these cells, all of them are held by the parent. None of these cells are registered with the Secretary of State. So when I try to open a bank account for this cell, I don't do that because you don't need to if you just have a management entity. But let's assume that I wanted to. Then the bank would have to rely upon my operating agreement. They'd have to look at the operating agreements to see that I created this entity. Or what I would do is I would apply for an EIN for that specific cell and then obtain the EIN letter from the IRS, letting them know it's a disregarded entity to show, hey, I've gone one step further to, in the eyes of the bank, give it legal legitimacy. All right, so that's the first problem that we have in Florida. Now, the second problem you have beyond this, the filing, right, is a problem that exists in all the states. When you set up a Series LLC, generally speaking, unless it's in Wyoming or Delaware, you have no privacy. So when I create this parent here, my name's going to go on the parent. So it'd say Clint as manager, right, of the LLC. Then whenever I create these different cells in Florida, since they're all registered back in the state of Florida, they're going to see Clint as the manager, or they'll see this parent LLC as the member manager. So there's zero anonymity with this type of structure. So what you want to do then, if you're looking to build an anonymity structure around your Series LLC, especially in Florida, is you want to structure it so that you have an additional shield there, the anonymity shield protection. Now that anonymity shield protection comes from starting with a Wyoming limited liability company. So you set up a Wyoming LLC. So this is the first entity you create. And after you've created the Wyoming LLC, then when we set up our Florida limited liability company over here, I'm going to set the Florida LLC up with the Wyoming LLC. This is a critical step right here. I set up the Florida LLC with the Wyoming LLC as its member manager. Okay? That is how you're going to gain privacy for your Series LLC, be it Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, wherever you create it. You always have to start with the Wyoming company. Now, why do I say Wyoming and not some other state? Because in Wyoming, like Delaware, Wyoming does not collect any information on the members or managers of a limited liability company. All right, now if you want to learn more about this, I've got a video, you can see it right up here, about Series LLCs. If you want to go more into depth, check out that video. It'll explain this in more detail. Now, with the Wyoming LLC there as this parent, what you're also providing yourself is not only anonymity, but asset protection. Because see, a lot of times when people create a limited liability company, say it's in Florida, if it's just one member there, then you do not have charging order protections, which means if you get sued individually, somebody could take your parent LLC from you and then gain all access to all your cells. So in that context, if we're looking for the gold standard of asset protection and privacy, we're going to have Wyoming own it because Wyoming has a different charging order statute than Florida. So for those single member investors out there, then you're definitely going to want to use Wyoming to be your member manager of your Florida Series LLC. Okay, so here are the two problems I've addressed thus far. Number one is that you have multiple filings for each cell, so it kind of negates the benefit of having to avoid RA fees and all that. And the second thing is you don't have privacy. Now, the third thing you need to be aware of if you invest in Florida and why this is really important, which a lot of people that have followed that have been talking about this, completely miss for the real estate investor. You see, if I set up a Florida limited liability company here, a Series LLC, all right, and I have it owned by my Wyoming. So let's say you follow everything I've been sharing with you on this video right now. So here's your Wyoming LLC down here. So you have your privacy. And then you're going to create your cells right here. So I'm going to create, let's say I have two properties I plan to transfer in. I create my cells. And I have my cells owned 100% by my Florida Series LLC. So they're owned 100% there. So everything flows down to here and then flows down into here. Now, if I did this and I'm ready now to place my properties here and transfer them into each of these cells, deed them in. What no one is talking about and what you need to be aware of is that when you deed that property into that cell, there are two major concerns that I have for you. Number one is your tax cap reset, okay? So if you own that property for several years, when you transfer it into that cell, your property tax cap that's been on that property is now going to get reset to its current fair market value. So most likely you'll be paying more in property taxes on an annual basis. That's the first problem. The second problem you face here is what we call dock stamps. So if your property has a mortgage on it, then by transferring that property into the cell, there will be a transfer tax on that transfer. And so many times, even though you have real estate and you look at this type of structure, you think, wow, this is great. I can put in a new structure that other states have offered investors before, and it's going to give me more flexibility with my planning. It really doesn't, and it drives up your costs. Because what I like to do for my Florida clients is, even though Florida has now adopted the Series LLC, I'm not using it. I'm going to use the tried and true structure that I've been utilizing for Florida investors for years, and that is to do something completely different. In this structure here, I use a Delaware Series LLC. Now, why am I using Delaware and not Wyoming? Because Wyoming is similar to Florida. If you set up a Series LLC in Wyoming, then you have to register each cell. Now, there you still have anonymity, but you get that added expense. Delaware, you don't have to register the cells. So let's assume that I have those two properties again. I'm going to create a Delaware Series LLC with my two cells right here, owned 100% by the parent. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up two land trusts. Okay, so I'm just put LT here. Now I'm going to take my properties, those two homes that I have right here, I'm going to deed one into this land trust and one into this land trust. Now, by placing those properties in a land trust, I avoid the property tax reset. That's the first thing I avoid. And the second thing is I don't have to worry about the dock stamp. So I move those properties into the land trust. And once they're held in the trust, I then take the trust and I put it into the individual cell of that Delaware Series Limited Liability Company. Now, what I just showed you gives you complete privacy because none of this information, your involvement with it, will be on a public record anywhere. No one will be able to trace this back to you. So if you invest in Florida and you're looking for the optimal structure, right? Even though Florida's changed their rules, they didn't change the game for you. That is why if you're an investor, use a land trust. It's a powerful tool for Florida real estate investors, and then couple that with a Delaware Series LLC and not a Florida limited liability company. Those do not work. All right. The better way to go there is a structured I just shared with you. Hey, hit the like button if you're a Florida investor or someone who plans to invest in Florida and you want to stay protective. And be sure to subscribe to my channel for more in 2026 when it comes to real estate asset protection and tax planning. Listen, catch me in my next video and I'll show you great strategies that'll help you in this year to make it your best year ever.